Live from the state capitol in Jackson, this is the governor's annual State of the State address, delivered to a special joint session of the Mississippi legislature.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the entire membership, I want to welcome you to your capital and to this historic chamber. This night, of course, marks the last State of the State address by our distinguished governor, the Honorable Haley Barbour. Governor Barbour, I know you can hear me. We want to thank you for your years of service to our great state. I want to pledge that the Mississippi House of Representatives will continue to do our best effort to work with the Lieutenant Governor, with you, and the State Senate for the best interests of the people of this state. At this time, please bring Governor Barbour and Mrs. Barbour forward. Yes, sir. Just a moment, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker and Lieutenant Governor, I would like to ask the following committee, composed of Representatives Jennings, Holland, Flaggs, and Senators Burton, Simmons, and Hyde-Smith, to escort Governor Haley Barbour and his wife Marcia to the Speaker's podium.
Thank you. At this time, I recognize and turn the gavel over to the Honorable Phil Bryant, Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Mississippi. Governor Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. It is so great to be back in the House chamber. I had 5 wonderful years here. In 1991, I walked into this chamber and met a man, if I remember correctly, was then chairman of the Education Committee. Since that time, he has served in many capacities. He has been the chairman of Transportation, Ways and Means. He has been serving here for 31 years for the men and women of the House of Representatives and the men and women of the state of Mississippi. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Billy McCoy. Now let me take this opportunity to introduce some other distinguished guests, including the House Speaker Pro Tem, ladies and gentlemen of the House and Senate, the Honorable J.P. Compretta. And now the President Pro Tem of the Mississippi Senate, the Honorable Billy Hughes. Now please allow me to introduce our statewide elected officials, beginning with our Honorable Secretary of State, Delbert Hosemann. Mr. Hosemann. Attorney General Jim Hood is the Attorney General with us. Our Honorable State Treasurer, Tate Reeves. A seat that I held for some time, the State Auditor, Stacey Pickering. Mr. Auditor. Commissioner of Insurance, Mike Cheney. The Honorable Retiring Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, Mr. Lester Spell. Let's give Lester a hand. Now, please help me welcome the Mississippi Supreme Court, and I've been told to tell you to hold your applause until all have been introduced. Chief Justice William Waller, Jr. Mr. Chief Justice, if you'll remain standing, please, sir. Presiding Justice George C. Carlton, Jr. Presiding Justice James E. Graves. Justice Jess H. Dickerson. Justice Michael K. Randolph. Justice Ann H. Lamar. Justice Jim Kitchens. Justice David A. Chandler, and Justice Randy Bubba Pierce. Please give our Supreme Court a hand. Now help me welcome our State Court of Appeals, and again, please hold your applause until all have been introduced. A former House member and my dear friend, Chief Justice Leslie King, Judge King. Presiding Judge Joseph Lee. Presiding Judge William H. Myers. Judge Tyree Irving. Judge Kenneth Griffiths, Jr. Judge Donna Barnes. Judge David M. Ishii. Judge Larry E. Roberts. Judge Virginia Carlton. And Judge Jimmy Maxwell. Please give the Court of Appeals a hand in your appreciation. Now, I welcome our Public Service Commissioners. I hope they've been able to make it here tonight. Northern District Public Service Commissioner Brandon Presley. Mr. Presley, are you with us? Central Public Service Commissioner Lynn Posey. And Southern District Public Service Commissioner Leonard Bentz. That's our Public Service Commissioner. Let's give him a hand. I know I have seen some of our Transportation Commissioners here. If you will help me welcome them, please hold your applause until all have been introduced. Central Transportation Commissioner Dick Hall. Mr. Hall. Southern Transportation Commissioner Wayne Brown. Please give them a hand. Now it is my particular honor, and if you would help me welcome a member of our United States Congress representing Mississippi's 3rd District, United States Congressional District, Congressman Greg Harper and his son Livingston. Congressman Harper. And welcome, please, and recognize my lovely wife, Deborah, just for a moment. Deborah Bryan is here with us tonight. Thank you. We recognize you. Now, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing someone who exemplifies grace and compassion in our state. A person who continues to work on the issues close to her heart for the betterment of all Mississippians, traveling the state, promoting healthier lifestyles and improving education for the future of Mississippi. A lady who not only loves the people of this great state, but loves her family, a proud mother, and even a prouder grandmother. A lady who will be remembered as one of Mississippi's most beloved First Ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, the First Lady of the state of Mississippi, Ms. Marsha Barbour. I now have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing a man who has guided our state through the toughest of times. He guided us out of the devastation of Katrina. He guided us towards prosperity in spite of a failing economy. He guided Mississippi to a place that we can all be proud of. Now, as we approach the end of his term of service, we should not only look back on his years of positive leadership, but also forward to the future, because I believe the rest of America would benefit from that same steadfast leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, a leader we can all be proud of. Please help me welcome the Governor of the state of Mississippi, the Honorable Haley Reeves Barbour. Governor Barbour.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now look, this is the first time I ever got more applause than Marcia. Speaker, Governor Bryant, thanks to you and thanks to all of you in the legislature for that warm welcome, but more important, for the work we've done. This is a bittersweet time for me. Let us start off by recognizing General Freeman's here. While we don't have as many of our National Guard in harm's way as we have sometimes in the past when I made this speech, we should never forget to be thankful for the sacrifice of our guardsmen and the sacrifice of all our people in uniform. Law enforcement, firefighters, corrections, and conservation officers, EMTs. So let's start tonight by, if you would, join me in a moment of silent prayer for these men and women and for their safety and success. Thank you. This is the 8th and final time Marcia and I will appear on this podium to deliver my State of the State address. You know, when Marcia and I married 39 years ago, I knew I'd outmarried myself. I just didn't know that over this 7 years, you and all the people in Mississippi would have recognized that fact too. She's not only joined me at every one of these occasions, she's also been part of the work that I've tried to do for our state, especially in the grueling weeks and months after Katrina. And I have to tell you, I'm proud of her. You know, as I composed this last State of the State address, I couldn't help but think about how much things have changed in these 7 years. To start with, I did my speech on my new iPad. In 2004, iPad was what Marcia called what I would do with my waistline at Christmas. But you know, reflecting back, it's essential that state government has made changes like we have from when I stood up here that first time in January 2004. The state budget was in awful shape with an enormous shortfall, and we had about $3 million in unallocated monies in our rainy day fund. Lawsuit abuse had created a health care crisis in our state, and every small business in Mississippi was one lawsuit away from bankruptcy. Despite a surging drug epidemic, the drug enforcement budget had been cut by nearly 40%. And though the national recession had been over for more than 2 years, the need for job creation was the first thing on the minds of almost every voter. You know, Mr. Speaker, I vividly remember the first time we ever visited. The Speaker told me that campaigning for re-election in 2003, he'd gone down this country road, and at each one of 3 houses in a row, somebody had lost their job that year. You know, legislators and friends, I applaud you and your predecessors on the actions you took to deal with these problems and with other problems. It wasn't easy and wasn't always pretty. Sometimes we battled, but we've accomplished a lot together. While it took 2+ years, we got our budget back to where the state spent no more than it received in annual revenue, and we quit raiding balances in special funds. We replenished the rainy day fund to its statutory limit of $375 million and created other reserves to cover potential federal liability. And we did it without raising anybody's taxes. Despite the worst recession in generations and a steep drop in state revenue, we've kept our budget balanced by cutting spending and without depleting all of our reserves. If you adopt my budget recommendation for next year, fiscal year 12, the new governor and legislature who will follow us will have some $200 million left in reserves for FY13. Plus, our school districts have more than $450 million in their reserves. I realize this is an election year, and every penny of appropriated spending has a constituency. You're going to get pressure to spend for this, spend more for that. As governor, I've cut the budget by a total of about $700 million in just the last 2 years. Just as our constituents have had to cut back, they expect state government to cut back. They know the alternative is raising taxes, because government has no money except what it takes from taxpayers. The people of Mississippi deserve to keep more of what they earn, and we owe it to the people of Mississippi not to raise taxes, but instead to control spending. Not only do I urge you not to consider tax increases for this year, I implore you to keep spending at a level this year that protects more of our reserves for next year. That way, we can stop any tax increases in 2012 as well. Remember, what you have accomplished in controlling spending over the last 7 years can be lost in only 1 year. Our first year, you passed and I signed the most comprehensive tort reform law in the country, and it worked. Medical liability premiums have declined by 61%, and the number of medical liability cases against Mississippi physicians fell 90% within 1 year of the laws going into effect. Tort reform has also been a major factor in economic growth and job creation. Starting that first year, we implemented significant, successful changes to spur the creation of more higher-paying jobs for our people. After tort reform, we reorganized the Development Authority, gave it outstanding new leadership, and began our Momentum Mississippi campaign. MDA's results are striking. This team has supported businesses that created 64,666 jobs in this state. We created our new Department of Employment Security and expanded it to take over workforce development and job training. The State Workforce Investment Board was established, and the Workforce Enhancement Training, or WET Fund, came into existence through a diversion of the unemployment insurance tax, a tax you also cut by 25% that same year. Now, every year, the WET Fund puts about $20 million into workforce development and skills training at our 15 community colleges, which do a great job. A study of graduates of wet fund finance programs shows they make $4,300 per year more than before that training. And our improved skilled workforce has been a reason companies like Toyota, GE Aviation, PACCAR, Severstal, and a long list of very high-tech energy companies have come to Mississippi. Coupled with workforce quality, the state has focused on attracting advanced manufacturing with advanced materials. We've targeted aerospace, automotive, and energy, as well as service sectors. We've also beefed up our efforts to help existing businesses. The results in the first 6 years include a 27% increase in personal per capita income in Mississippi despite the recession. That's the 15th highest increase of any state in the country in this 6-year period. While we're not immune to the effects of the national recession, we've fared better in other measurements too. For instance, while our unemployment percentage has increased, it's done so at a rate about 1/2 as great as the nation as a whole. I see the leaders of law enforcement standing in the corner back there. In law enforcement, we fought the scourge of illegal narcotics with a vengeance. In 2005, you passed laws to reduce the production and use of crystal methamphetamine. When the criminals learned how to get around those laws, you just made the necessary changes to stop them. And those changes are working. In the first 6 months of this fiscal year, that is July 1 to December 31st, 2010, we had 68% fewer meth labs reported. Meth arrests are down 62%, and the number of drug-endangered children has fallen by 76%. So I not only congratulate the Bureau of Narcotics and the Department of Public Safety, but I want to congratulate you in the legislature for sticking with it, for doing what needed to be done with these legislative changes. To keep law enforcement where we want it, I am announcing tonight that I will dedicate $7.3 million of the governor's discretionary funds to hold a trooper school this calendar year. And let me say, if you will join me in moving motor carrier enforcement from MDOT to the Department of Public Safety, freeing up another 40 highway patrolmen, that means we would have nearly 100 more state troopers on the road. So I hope you will move that program where we can have all of law enforcement on our highways at one department instead of it being divided. And you know, as I think back 7 years ago, there's one other thing that I'm very proud of. I'm proud that Mississippi cast the highest percentage of its vote of any state in the country for the Defense of Marriage Act, defining marriage as a union between one man and one woman. And that in that first year, 2004, after we worked together to enact comprehensive pro-life legislation, Americans United for Life, a national right to life organization, named Mississippi the safest state in America for an unborn child. Yeah, you have accomplished a lot. Positive change has been the norm, and Mississippi, despite the global recession, is a better place in so many ways than it was 7 years ago. Even with this progress, though, we all know there's more to be done. While state government can't eliminate many effects of the national recession, we can improve the ways we do things and, in turn, improve the lives of our citizens, the education of our children, and the prospects for our employers and employees. Last week, I announced that the Division of Medicaid appears to be on track to run a surplus of $40 to $50 million this year, probably because of less utilization than projected. But I do want to congratulate the Division of Medicaid for an outstanding job of managing this enormous program and of controlling its enormous costs. Let me remind you what a change that represents. When I became governor, Medicaid costs were skyrocketing. System controls were so weak that the last year before I came into office, Medicaid spent $79 million of state funds and didn't even enter it on its books. Many of you will remember the special session that we had to hold in order to clean up that mess. Well, I'm pleased to tell you and the people of Mississippi that today our state Medicaid program is run with compassion and efficiency for its beneficiaries, their providers, and for the people who pay for it, the taxpayers. The federal authorities reported last year that Mississippi's Medicaid error rate is 3.47%, the fourth lowest in the United States. The national error rate is more than twice as high. The product of this is this surplus, because of which I have instructed the Division of Medicaid to exercise its authority under state law to use a portion of this FY11 surplus to create 7,800 additional slots for eligible Medicaid beneficiaries to receive home and community-based care. Currently, we have about 6,100 beneficiaries who are on the waiting list to be provided care in their homes and communities, and I expect the entire 7,800 allocation to be filled this fiscal year. Both Senator Hobb Bryan and Representative Steve Holland, who chair the Senate and House Public Health Committees respectively, are outspoken proponents of increased home and community-based care for people on Medicaid. It happens that both of them are Democrats, but I appreciate our agreement and our ability to work together on this. I will tell you all that the increase in the number of home and community-based care slots will lead to a broader, stronger infrastructure to deliver these services across the state that in the long run will provide better health care at lower cost. This will be a blessing to both the beneficiaries who want to, can, and should be receiving care and services at home and in their communities, but also a benefit to the taxpayers. You're welcome, Steve. Last week, you started this session by funding a loan for Styon, a cutting-edge, low-cost manufacturer of thin-film solar panels, which will build these panels in Hattiesburg, investing $500 million and employing 1,000 people within 6 years. I want to applaud and thank committee chairs Senator Dean Kirby and Representative Percy Watson on that. We all know a big job Governor, we all know a big job creation project is the best way to start a legislative session. Makes a lot of smiling going on. The national recession notwithstanding, job creation will pick up in our state this year. As evidence of that, in the first 3 quarters of 2010, Mississippi saw more new jobs and investment that were announced in all of 2009. Toyota and its suppliers have stepped up hiring. GE Aviation, American Eurocopter, and PACCAR are adding employees, while new companies like Twin Creeks Technologies in South Haven and Senatobia and Schultz in Tunica will be operational this year. Nissan, which had an outstanding year in 2010, is also ramping up, including introduction of its new light commercial vehicle. Agriculture had a tremendous year last year. Because farming doesn't directly employ that many people, some people lose sight of how large and important a part it plays in our economy. In 2010, total value of our crops, including poultry and timber, was nearly $7 billion, a record in Mississippi. And commodity prices are promising for this year. We just can't forget, as public servants, how important agriculture and forest products are to our state and communities. I mention these things because our goal has to be to grow our economy faster than the nation as a whole, and we can do it. We have to focus on our advantages: low taxes, a friendly business environment, rational regulation, abundant natural resources, and especially a first-rate, affordable workforce. And we're committed to continuous improvement of that great workforce. Our 4 research universities have become effective engines of economic growth. All 4 have a lot to offer. Mississippi State's Center for Advanced Vehicular Studies and the Raspet Flight Center, the East Center at Jackson State, the Polymer Institute at USM, and the Center for Manufacturing Excellence at Ole Miss are obvious resources for major and small employers. They find them terrifically useful. And our universities even spawn businesses like SemiSouth in Starkville, FNC in Oxford, Warmcraft in Taylorsville were all spun off from our research universities. Further, our community colleges have been and remain critical in the enormous improvement of skills in our workforce. Toyota said the main reason it chose Mississippi for its newest assembly plant, the most sought-after economic development project in the United States that year, was the quality of our workforce. And I remember well when the vice chairman of General Electric, one of the biggest manufacturers in the world, announced GE Aviation would locate a facility to make composite jet engine fan blades and assemblies in Batesville. He said, "This is the most sophisticated manufacturing General Electric does anywhere in the world, and we're going to do it in North Mississippi." What a tribute to our workforce. 89% of our kids go to public schools. To have the kind of workforce for Mississippi to succeed in the 21st century, we have to start in K through 12. Our schools are getting better. Our last NAEP scores were up more than the national average, and the dropout rate's going down. But the amount of improvement's not enough. We got to do better. We need to make dual enrollment easier and more common. That way the students can learn more, but their parents can also save money as college credits are earned while they're in high school. In constrained budget times, we've got to put more resources into the classroom and reduce what is spent on administration. We must continue to focus on improving the quality of teachers coming out of our colleges of education while simultaneously using technology more in teaching our kids. Finally, Because competition is good in every sphere, I urge you to reform the charter school law so more children can benefit. With excellence in education, we'll keep pushing job creation. Hopefully, the federal government will start making it easier for us instead of harder. Congress's passage in the lame duck session of an extension of the Bush tax cuts removes a critical obstacle to economic growth. For 2 years, the threat that the president and the majority in Congress would let the largest tax increase in American history go into effect this month was an enormous cloud over the economy that retarded investment and job creation. Now it's gone. We still have federal policies that stifle economic growth. If the Obama administration's health care mandates actually go into effect, employers don't know what their costs or responsibilities will be, so it impedes hiring. Uncertainty about the Dodd-Frank financial services law and its implementation stymies investment. And the gigantic deficits and resulting purchases of trillions in U.S. treasuries by the Fed mean all that money can't go into financing private sector projects. More obvious every day, the Obama administration's energy policies are driving up the cost of energy. Gasoline, as you noticed, costs more than $3 a gallon. And it's because the administration's energy policy can be stated in one sentence: increase the cost of energy so people will use less of it. Don't take my word for it. Remember, the president said in 2008 his cap and trade plan would necessarily cause electricity rates to skyrocket. And Energy Secretary Chu said what the country really needed was for our gasoline prices to increase to what they are in Europe. That's $6 to $9 a gallon. Sunday's Clarion Ledger includes a column by Dr. Sugar, a professor at Ole Miss, that catalogs example after example of the Environmental Protection Agency's anti-energy efforts, all of which drive up energy costs. Well, we don't need higher fuel prices in Mississippi. $4 gas brought us to our knees in 2008. But other than litigation and encouraging our congressional delegation, we can't change federal energy policy, even when it closes down production of oil and gas in the Gulf of Mexico and costs thousands of jobs and hours in the other Gulf states. But we can make Mississippi an energy reliable state. We have an energy policy as long as I'm governor, and that policy is more American energy. We need to promote all forms of energy that can compete in the marketplace successfully. All of the above, plus conservation and efficiency. More American energy means more energy security and less of our money going for foreign oil, often sold to us by people who don't like us. Abundant, affordable energy will help American businesses, especially manufacturing, stay competitive in the global marketplace. And of course, that means more jobs and a better quality of life for Americans. The current federal policy of more expensive energy so people use less energy is not an energy policy. It's an environmental policy, one that hurts the economy, blocks job creation, and ultimately reduces standards of living. We can't repeal that bad policy yet, but in Mississippi, we'll continue our state policies that generate higher skill, better paying jobs while making us an energy reliable state. Your support in that has been and remains indispensable. It contributed to Mississippi Power's new $2.5 billion coal-fired power plant in Kemper County. Entergy's $500 million expansion investment to increase output at Grand Gulf Nuclear Station by 13%, and SMEPA's $500 million in upgrades. Chevron continues to invest hundreds of millions at Pascagoula, its largest refinery in the United States. And next door to Chevron, Gulf LNG is halfway finished with its $1+ billion liquefied national gas terminal. Denbury's tertiary recovery projects have helped increase the state's oil production. Blue Fire has begun construction of a cellulosic ethanol plant in Fulton, and Interchem plans a waste-to-energy liquid transportation fuels facility in Pontotoc. Ergon and Bunge's $100 million ethanol plant at Vicksburg's fully operational. This quarter, Twin Creeks facility in Senatobia will begin manufacturing solar panels. Stion's operation will begin this year. And Solidine's ultra-high-tech dynamic window plant in Olive Branch will be in production this year as well. Finally, we're optimistic that Kior will soon be breaking ground in Columbus for its first biofuel refinery. And Rentec has purchased a site for its coal-to-liquid motor fuels facility in Natchez. These projects are generating more than $10 billion in capital investment in our state and thousands of jobs. Many of these projects will result in new markets and higher prices for Mississippi farm and timber products and for our lignite coal. Critically, many will reduce energy use and reduce emissions. In fact, Mississippi Power's Kemper County plant is the first commercial-scale coal-fired power plant in the U.S. with carbon capture and sequestration. Its emissions will be the equivalent of a natural gas-fired power plant. Our economy is much bigger than a few industries. Tourism is and will continue a huge employer in Mississippi and a big piece of our economy. Plus, tourism helps our image. While Mississippi suffered from a negative image all my life, people who actually visit here almost always go home with a better impression and a positive experience. In 2007, I recommended to you that we build a civil rights museum in our state. The civil rights struggle is an important part of our history. Millions of people are interested in learning more about it. People from around the world would flock to see the museum and learn more about the movement. A commission headed by former Supreme Court Justice Reuben Anderson and former federal judge Charles Pickering developed a design and a plan. The proposal went sideways because of a disagreement about where the museum should be located. Justice Anderson and former Governor William Winter recently talked to me, and they have recommended a solution. I'm presenting it tonight because this is the year to get this museum going. This is the 50th anniversary of the Freedom Riders, and it's the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. This is the year that we should start with our Civil Rights Museum. Justice Anderson and Governor Winter recommended we build the Civil Rights Museum adjacent to the proposed Mississippi History Museum at the existing site in downtown Jackson. We have to resolve the siting issue so that we can get this done. And now, this year, this session, is the time that we've got to cut that Gordian knot and get it done. The reason I urge you to move on this is it is an appropriate way and the only appropriate way for us to do justice to the civil rights movement. and to have a museum that will stand as a monument of remembrance and reconciliation. As I close, I want to return to the subject that's heavy on my mind, and that's Mississippi's leading the nation out of this recession. We're well prepared to make a major leap forward. We saw it in the surge that was cut off by the national recession in 2008. That period was marked by increasing employment, rising incomes, replacing low-skilled, lower-paying jobs with higher-skilled, better-paying jobs, and we can get back on that road. We have advantages over other states that we've talked about, but I think what we got to focus on is attitude. We showed that can-do attitude after Katrina. We got to get it back. When the coast got obliterated by the worst natural disaster in American history, and hurricane-force winds extended 240 miles north up to West Point, our people didn't whine or mope. They weren't looking for somebody to blame. Now, Mississippians proved themselves to be strong, resilient, self-reliant people. They got knocked flat, but got back up and went to work. Went to work helping themselves and went to work helping their neighbors. And the country and the world noticed. I can't tell you how many times after the storm other governors or senators or CEOs told me, Haley, you got to be proud of your people. And of course I was. But you know, it's true that the Lord works in mysterious ways. Because today I realize that Katrina, something you wouldn't want to happen to your worst enemy, that the response of our people to Katrina and its devastation has done more to help the image of Mississippi than anything else that's happened in my lifetime. People saw our state and our people in a new light. They gave us a chance to compete for their business, for their vacations, for their expansions. That got us on that road. And now we got to get back on that road. The country and the world have a new image of our state. They're prepared to give us a chance. But all it is a chance to compete. So it's up to us to meet the challenge. Better said, it's up for us to meet the opportunity. If we grasp this opportunity, it'll propel Mississippi to its rightful place as a leading, thriving state in the fastest growing section of the country. People used to say Mississippi is the most underestimated place in America, and Mississippians are the most underestimated people. Well, today, after we've learned to quit underestimating ourselves, we've proven to the world what Mississippians are made out of. And the world likes what it saw. The world likes what it sees. Now it's up to us to seize this moment. Stakes are simple, but huge. They can be put into one short paragraph. Our goal is for Mississippi mothers and grandmothers to see their children and grandchildren choosing to stay in Mississippi because Mississippi is the best place to build a successful career. Because Mississippi is the place with the most opportunities. And it is the place where you can enjoy this sweet land's quality of life. That's the dream of every mother and grandmother in Mississippi. And it is we who, with the right attitude and hard work, who can help make it a reality in this decade. That is what we've all been trying to strive for. Thank you for all you've done to change our state for the better. And thanks for all you're going to do to make sure we keep moving forward together. Thank you all. God bless you. And God bless America.
Thank you, Governor Barbour. Thank you for your service to this great state. Now, at this point, this joint assembly comes to a close. I would like to recognize the gentleman from Jackson, the Honorable Billy Broomfield, to dissolve this joint session. Mr. Broomfield, the gentleman from Jackson.
Lieutenant Governor Bryan, I move this joint session be now dissolved.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the motion from the gentleman from Jackson County. This joint assembly be dissolved. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. This joint assembly is now dissolved.
And now, the Democratic response.
Good evening. I'm Representative Tyrone Ellis of Starkville.
And I'm Representative Cecil Brown of Jackson. As we enter the second week of the three-month 2011 Mississippi legislative session, every House and Senate member realizes the very real challenges we face this year. Everything from funding state economic development needs in the middle of a difficult recession to adequately funding all aspects of public education. There's no doubt this will be a tough year. While we're here speaking tonight on behalf of the Democratic members in the legislature, we recognize this economic recession has hit everyone. This isn't a Democratic Party problem. This isn't a Republican Party problem. The only way we will work our way through this crisis is by putting aside our political differences and working for the good of every Mississippian. We saw that happen on the opening day of this session. House and Senate members of both parties joined forces to provide an economic incentive package that will lure a $500 million solar panel plant to Mississippi, creating 1,000 jobs with an average salary of $43,000. Even though this facility will be located in the Hattiesburg area, we have joined with Governor Barbour in enacting job creation incentives for businesses in all parts of the state. This was a great way to start the session, and it shows exactly what we can do when we put aside our political differences and work as a team. We know that the state budget will be tight, but Democratic and Republican leaders in the State House and Senate have already started working together on a bipartisan funding plan. Last month, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, composed of House and Senate leaders from both parties, crafted a proposed state budget for the fiscal year that starts July 1. Legislators from all walks of life are in agreement about how to budget our funds from existing revenue. Among our many priorities is public education. We know the recession has been tough on elementary, secondary, and higher education. So we want to assure you we will do our best to guarantee that the legislature funds all aspects of education at the highest possible level. Our children, the future of our state, deserve no less than a top-notch, high-quality public education. We also want to stress our commitment to funding all state services with the revenue we already have. We will not raise taxes. We will not even consider a tax increase. Raising taxes is a bad idea. Raising taxes in the middle of a deep recession would be a disaster. Over the next 3 months, you can look for Democratic and Republican leaders to continue to work together on a comprehensive spending plan for our state. And when this session comes to a close in April, we will have a budget that funds all of state government, a budget that is reasonable, a budget that is balanced, and a budget that does not raise taxes.
In addition to funding state government and providing sufficient money for public education, we also are concerned about health care in Mississippi, specifically making sure Medicaid and mental health are properly funded. We understand the importance of helping those Mississippians who are especially vulnerable, and we will do what we can to make sure those areas are properly funded. As we approach the 2011 statewide elections, House and Senate members will spend the next few months using the latest census figures to redraw individual legislative districts. We do this every 10 years as required by law. It's also the right thing to do because once completed, every House and Senate district will have roughly the same number of voters. This process takes into account population changes. Areas of the state that have experienced population growth will likely see additional districts. Other areas that have seen population shrink could lose legislative seats. Currently, at this point, it's still too early to say what will happen across the state. That being said, we will ensure that these redistricting decisions will be fair to everyone. There is no reason why the Senate and House, acting together, cannot adopt fair plans in this regular session so that we all run in the new districts later this fall. There is no reason why one dime of taxpayer money should be spent on lawyers to litigate this matter in court. As we work our way through this session, Democrats in the legislature will work to protect funding for all levels of education, for the agencies of state government that protect our public safety, and for the Medicaid and mental health programs that support our most vulnerable citizens. In the end, though, we believe the most important thing we can do is provide support and legislative help to our business community as they move toward creating more jobs. Our message to the businessmen and women of Mississippi is this: if you've got a way we can be helpful, come see us. If there's something we can do to create jobs, let us know about it. Our doors are open. The key to success is simple: dedicated public officials, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, who put aside partisan issues and work hard for the better of the state. That's what we pledge tonight. With God's help and your help, that's what we will accomplish this year. May God bless and keep each of you, the citizens of the great state of Mississippi. Good night.
We close tonight by joining other Americans in remembering the victims of the senseless tragedy in Arizona. We especially offer our prayers and thoughts for the families who lost loved ones, and we pray for the recovery of those who were wounded. God bless you. Good night.
We've heard the governor's priorities for the 2011 legislature. What about lawmakers themselves? Watch Quorum beginning next week and talk directly to the lawmakers. MPB's live legislative report begins at 7 p.m. Wednesday the 19th on MPB TV.